Welcome to this story session. Our today's story is called Going Places, written by A.R. Barton. The story peeps into the teenage psychology and the tendency of teenagers to indulge in fantasizing. It also highlights the hero worship that is so prevalent among adolescents. Teens hold popular idols on a high pedestal and often try emulating them. The story features a young schoolgirl, Sophie, who is given to her grand fantasies. As a matter of fact, the title, Going Places, means that someone will be successful or someone is destined to achieve great things. It signifies Sophie's desire to be successful. Does Sophie accomplish her dreams? Does she meet her favorite celebrity? Let's find out. The story opens with Sophie and her friend Jancy returning home from school. They are at the brink of their school life. So, Sophie reveals her career plans to her friend. She has a fabulous dream to open a boutique. However, Jancy interrupts, saying that opening a boutique requires money. But Sophie isn't discouraged. She says that she will be a manager, and that will make her enough money. Jancy objects to this assertion too, saying that it takes time to be promoted to the seat of a manager. But Sophie is stubborn. She says that her talent will enable her to be what she wants. This makes Jancy depressed because she knows that both of them are earmarked to be workers at a biscuit factory, as they come from a lower middle-class background. We can see the contrast between two friends already. Sophie is starry-eyed and cares nothing for the dull reality that she is a part of, whereas Jancy is realistic. She knows that their families do not have enough financial resources to support their grand dreams and ambitions. She reminds Sophie to think over her future prospects sensibly, as they are only a few months away from passing out from school. But Sophie pays no heed. She goes on to flaunt yet another dream, to be an actress or even a fashion designer. When she reaches home, she shares her dream of having a boutique with her family. Her father tries to burst her bubble. He replies that for people like them, it would be a luxury indeed to be able to afford even a decent house. He's eating a pie and looks sweaty and dirty with days' hard work. Her little brother, Derek, also comments on her dreamy ideas. She thinks money grows on trees, doesn't she, Dad? While their mother, working in the kitchen, only gives a sigh of frustration. The room is small and steamy from the stove and cluttered with dirty dishes. This reminds Sophie of her reality. She feels depressed but immediately goes to her brother Jeff's room, where he's tinkering with his bike. Jeff is an apprentice mechanic who travels to the city's outskirts for work. He is a man of few words, sharing very little about his private life, and this makes him very mysterious to Sophie. He represents to her a vast, exotic world unknown to her that she wants to experience. She wishes to even go along with him to his work someday, but she isn't allowed to. She feels that this interesting world is eagerly waiting for her arrival. She starts daydreaming again. Jeff in a shiny leather jacket, and she sitting behind him, wearing a yellow dress with a cape flowing behind, and the world welcoming them with a loud applause, as if they are celebrities. As Jeff is inspecting an oily mechanical part of the bike, Sophie can't help sharing her fantasy. Only this time, she states it as a fact. She brags that she has met Danny Casey, a young sensational football player. When her brother doesn't believe her, she goes on to concoct the whole incident. How she met him while looking at a shop's window, and what he looks like. To her disappointment, Jeff tells this to their dad, who obviously disapproves of such lies. Then their dad and Jeff discuss Danny Casey as a player. Their dad is skeptical of Casey's greatness and popularity, but Jeff defends him. Sophie butts in their conversation, adding yet another detail to her fictional account. She says that Casey is going to buy a shop. Of course, her dad isn't pleased. He scolds her, saying that her false tales will land her into trouble one day. She is still in denial. She knows that they don't believe her, but she doesn't want to admit defeat. So to make her fantasy sound like a reality, she fabricates a date. She tells Jeff that Casey asked her to meet him and has promised to give her an autograph. Jeff frankly refuses to believe her. On Saturday, Sophie and her family go to watch football match. Danny Casey is in the Irish team. He scores a goal, and Sophie is overjoyed. The next week at school, Jancy questions Sophie about her concocted story about meeting Casey. Jancy doesn't believe it either. Sophie feels bad. She had meant this make-believe story as a special secret with her brother. If she were to share it with Jancy, her friend would spread the story in the whole neighborhood. But Jancy swears secrecy. Sophie tells her only half part of the story, that she met Danny Casey and asked for his autograph, but they didn't have any pen, and that was all. It gets dark. Sophie is walking by a canal. The path is only lit by lamps. It is her childhood spot where she used to play. She sits down on a wooden bench under an elm tree. The atmosphere is quiet, without the hustle and bustle of the city. She has always thought of this spot as perfect for meeting someone in secret. She starts to picture Danny Casey coming from the shadows and her own excitement upon meeting him. When quite some time passes by, reality begins to sink into her that Casey might not be coming after all. She begins to doubt herself. She also feels embarrassed to face her family, worrying what will they think of her. She almost convinces herself that the whole meeting was true, but she wants to show a proof to her family. In a way, she wants to prove that her dreaminess isn't wrong, as opposed to the hard realism of her family. Gradually, she starts realizing the truth, and it is a hard blow to take. As she finally stares reality into its face, she gets depressed. She imagines what it would be like walking back home and telling Jeff that Danny didn't show up. But simultaneously, she finds it hard to let go of her fantasy. As she is returning home, she pictures one more time meeting Danny Casey outside Royce's shop. She plays the whole scene in her mind again, asking his autograph, staring into his green eyes, gushing over his shy smile and soft voice. She still can't give up her fantasy world. She still can't tell fiction apart from reality. This is the end of the story. As we discussed in the introduction, the theme of the story is hero worship and fantasizing that is so common during adolescence. Adolescents often daydream about meeting their idols and even leading a grand, luxurious life like them. They don't find their own reality fulfilling and interesting. It is essential to have dreams, but excessive indulgence can make a person lose contact with reality. A.S. Barton has brought this out through Sophie's character. In her fantasies, she is a part of a glamorous world, but in reality, she is confined to a small, suffocating house, stinking with stove steam, where a lower middle-class family struggles for survival. Thus her reality is in sharp contrast with her dreams. Her family balks at her wishful thinking. Her father works hard to make ends meet, and her mother has to bear the back-breaking burden of domesticity. Perhaps it is to escape this undesirable life that Sophie concocts her fabulous world. Her family and friend try to talk sense into her, but she refuses to accept their worldview. Adolescents often admire celebrities, sportspersons, rich and successful people. This is the case with Sophie too. She adores a young football player so much that she almost convinces herself that she has met him and he has asked her out. She even waits for his arrival. But her airy castles crumble down, and the weight of reality is hard to bear. Even as she begins to see patches of depressing reality, she refuses to acknowledge it. She shuts out this darkness around her, choosing instead to cling to her own version of reality. As depressing as the story is, it is a wake-up call for students who are at the edge of their school life. I hope you found the video interesting and useful. Thank you for watching.